There you go.
Okay.
Thank you, Rick.
Good evening. I'm Reverend Dr. Jeffrey Goodine, pastor of Church on Wheels Spoken Word of Deltona, Florida, and this is another edition of not morning prayer. Yeah, I'm gonna get my mind out of it in the morning. This is Bible study, Bible study 2024, and I thank you all for tuning in. Like us on, pull up my teleprompter. Like us on YouTube at Pastor Jeffrey Goodine. Subscribe and hit the bell to be notified. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on our Facebook group page, Church on Wheels, Let the Good News Roll. Facebook Live, Jeffrey Goodine. Twitter, which is now X, at Goodine Jeffrey. Instagram, Goodine Jeffrey. And Clubhouse, Church on Wheels Ministry. Today we're going to start a series on fasting, and we're going to be using and following the guidelines of a book by Emma Towns. I think it's a good book. It talks about 9 biblical fasts, what they mean, what they don't mean, and how you are to go about and what each one, the significance of each one of the fasts. So today we're going to do background and the introduction on fasting in the church and what its original concept was and what the original concept is, and then some of the history on fasting throughout the times and throughout the ages. Now, a lot of us do fasting now. Some people do all, fastings, it's how you approach it. Now, just because you don't eat nothing for a few days, that don't mean you're fasting. A lot of times you're just sick. But there's a deeper spiritual meaning to it, and then the book is titled Fasting for Spiritual Breakthrough. And then when you're fasting, remember why it is, or the main purpose of you fasting. There are a lot of prominent people, churches that do a fast. There's a prominent church that does a 21-day fast at the beginning of the new year. Some people, if you do Lent, that's a 40-day fast. Certain foods are eaten that, things like that. So we're gonna be on our journey of fasting, and I'm gonna introduce, over the next few weeks, we'll be introducing the different types of fast, the foundation of the fast, and then there is a little guideline that if you wanted to do this fast, then personally, then you could fill this form out, whatever, for yourself. It's just another avenue for you to help yourself do the fast or to stay on the fast. Starting out very, if you never fasted before, fasted. I didn't say go without food. I didn't say that. I said fasting.
How fast?
Yeah. By fasting, what is, the significance behind it, and then you want to work your way up to a fast. Now, there is a 40-day fast, but, you got to test the spirit on that one. I don't know. Look, you can do as long a fast as you want. Yeah, but you need to test the spirit on that 40-day fast. I'm just saying, I'm not saying that you can't do a 40-day fast. I'm not saying that. I'm saying is, if you start out, small, maybe a one-day fast, or, I mean, we already fasted when we go to bed at night. Okay, so that kind of don't count. Okay, I mean, I understand it, but that kind of don't count because we already sleep anyway. And then if you notice that breakfast is really breaking the fast, which is the nighttime fast. It depends on when you go to bed and when you wake up. There could be mostly an 8-hour fast, 6-hour fast, 4-hour fast. It all depends. So
I know someone was just so coincidentally here, or ironically, that someone who just started or just finished, I should say, a 3-day fast.
Oh, okay.
And for health reasons, and you hear a lot about that.
Right. Right. For health reasons and
kind of reset you.
Right, and reset. But there's a deeper meaning in the fasting. And we ought to touch into that deep meaning. And then when we get to the particular fast, and each one of the 9 biblical fasts, and we're going to cover, now look, we're going to cover 9. There's some more, but we're going to cover 9 over the night. Tonight's going to be the introduction to fast, kind of getting us ready. And then the challenge after it is, what is it that we want to, fast for? And we'll go over some of the things as to reasons in the Old Testament, in the New Testament, in the early church, the reason why they were fasting. And that would be something that we would get into. So for the next few weeks, we're going to be covering fasting in the church. And then if you want to do a fast, I think I'm going to incorporate fasting into the church. I never really kind of did it, but now this is something that I think that we can introduce into the church, introduce into our lives, and the deeper meaning behind it. And you don't have to kind of wait for for the pastor to do something. If I want to do a fast, for the church, I will mention it to the church and then see if anybody wanna do it with me. But really, a fast is a personal thing. That's something that's personal. So there are group fasts. There's personal fast, and then there are group fasts. If we talk about the group fast, we come to mind in the Bible is Daniel when King Nebuchadnezzar took him and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and wanted to make them part of his royalty or regime or whatever. He said those are the ones that was going to eat from the table, drink everything from the king. And Daniel told the servant that, look, we don't want to eat from that. So he made a deal with him. And what about if me, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, what if we only ate vegetables and let them eat whatever it is they're going to eat from the king's table? And in 10 days, you take a look. And that was a group fast. And then when they looked up, they saw that Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego fared better. They, instead of eating from the king's table, they just, but the Bible, in words, when you look at the wording in the Bible and you look the word up, it means vegetables. So, it is what it is. We notice that in the Bible. That's one of the things it talked about in the Bible. Also fast. There were other reasons for fasting in the Bible. So today we're going to talk about the introduction to tonight to fasting, kind of get our minds together about the different fasts. Now, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Clubhouse. Tonight, as I do always, send me the email at pastorjeffreygoodine@gmail.com. That's pastorjeffreygoodine@gmail.com. Here, and you will get a copy of the handout. I'll add you to the list. You get a copy of the handout so that you can follow along with us in Bible study. So send me the email at pastorjeffreygoodine@gmail.com. It's pastorjeffreygoodine@gmail.com. You'll get a copy of the handout so you can follow along with us in Bible study. So tonight, there are this book by Elmer Towns, and he's got other books, but this book right here about the 9 biblically tested things that I really kind of piqued my interest into fasting. It gives an introduction. It goes through each one of the 9 biblical fasts, and then at the end it gives you a 21-day devotional for your prayers. Now, there are things that he's going to cover in the book. And oh, by the way, you can get this book on Amazon, I think for $10 and some change. You may already have it, or you can get it through Kindle. But I will be going through the book. Now, it's one thing that I want you to understand is that he mentions that the book is intended to describe the purposes and showing the results of fasting. The purpose and the results of fasting. And we'll see in the Bible when they talk about fasting and what they did, you saw the results. But now he also says that there is some reasons why we should. Is because he says that more and more believers are bondage to demonic powers. And then there's a fast for that. Believers in the world need to solve complex problems. There's a fast for that. The church is in desperate need of revival. There's a fast for that. The church is crying out for people's character and integrity. You need strength and healing to overcome sinful and destructive habits. There's a fast for that. Because we live in a land of milk and honey, as they say in the United States, that we kind of don't think about starvation and everything that's going on around the world. Well, there's a fast for that, for us to come on board with that. Then there's a fast for aligning ourselves with God's will. There's a fast for that we need to take a look at. Just because we live in America and we got, the land of milk and honey, that don't make us the healthiest country. They say that Americans are fat, dumb, and lazy. I guess, I don't know. There's a fast for that. There's a fast for us to get get back in line with Christ and get our minds off of, economic and social. We're being influenced by other things instead of Christ. There is a fast for that. And then because these demonic forces are infiltrating Christianity, that we need protection from the evil one, there's a fast for that. So if you notice, what he's saying is that there are different fasts for different circumstances. Well, remember we talked about the power of God's name, that God has a name for every situation that you find yourself. We covered those. Now we're going to look at the fasting that goes along with these particular circumstances and things in our lives. In the hand that I put, fasting is a physical discipline. This is a physical discipline. Now, some fast, you're going to have to consult your physician. If you may not be able to do that fast. Or you may not be able to do a fast that long one. You may not be able to partake like this. That's okay. It's okay. It's not for everyone. It's not for everyone. Sometimes you can only fast for a day at a time, which is okay. A one-day fast. But you got to have some foundation as to why you're fasting. Now, I didn't say just going without food and water for a day. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that fasting for a day, some of us may not be able to do that with our health reasons and things. That's probably all we can do. But there's got to be a foundation as to why you're fasting. Again, it's a physical sense. Now, I put here religious practices such as fasting are less important than doing God's will. Now, fasting is not going to, and not doing God's will. You're kind of defeating the purpose. You're kind of defeating the purpose. And obedience is better than sacrifice. So, if we are obedient to God's word, don't think fasting is more important than following God's word, doing his will. I don't think so. Let's not look at fasting like that. Let's try not to look at fasting as a substitute for doing God's will. That's not it. That's not it. And we kind of walking a fine line here. But to put fasting above God's will, then you say, well, I'm not going to do, well, let me put it this way. I'm going to put the strong word. But, you're not doing God's will. And then you say, well, I'm going to fast for a day, or 3 days, or a week, or a month, or whatever. You're putting your fasting above God's will. So, if you're going to do God's will, fasting is just another level, not in place of. So, that should not be it. That should not be it. Even though sometimes it appears that way. Especially when we try to realign ourselves with Jesus in the fast, to realign ourselves to get back in the track. That is a concept of where we say that we're not doing God's will, but yet we're going to do his fast. I guess, we all have different reasons as to why we should fast or why we want to fast. But we need to realize that it is doing God's will. It's God's will more than us fasting. Let's not find ourselves substituting. Let's not look at it like that. The next thing I said, fasting is not an end in itself. It is a means by which we can worship the Lord and submit ourselves in humility to Him. And then follow that Galatians 5:1 says, it is for freedom that Christ has set us free. Stand firm then, and do not let yourselves be burdened again by the yoke of slavery. We are, just because we fast for a 3-day fast, and then we go right back to doing what we're doing, we kind of defeat the purpose. Christ has set us free to do these things. But what's the sense of doing them if we allow ourselves to go back into that? We ought to fast to try to get away from that, to get realigned with Christ, to get realigned with this. And some of the fast. And so we could find ourselves back into the bondage of thing, because the fast should be something to set us free.
Yeah, that whole chapter is good. Paul talking to the Galatians, about that freedom. Yeah, you could fast and you can do this and do that, but that doesn't, no advantages, in the verses further down of Christ being available to you, and quit trying to be a law keeper, and you have freedom in Christ. You're justified by that, not by keeping the law.
Right.
And those were a lot of the laws back then with the fasting and
right.
so forth.
And they were, I won't say that, they were using the freedom for the wrong reason. They were using the freedom to fast for the wrong reason. And so that's why the fasting says spiritual benefits of fasting is becoming more attentive to God. And Christian fasting focuses on God. See, the fast is focusing on God. Sometimes we realign ourselves. And the fast is for us to connect back. Sometimes that's what we need. We need a fast. We should fast to get our connection back.
Yeah, I was going to say, not to interrupt, but yeah, for those who can't, with dietary needs, it's not just about not eating or not drinking something. I think we need to fast from the world, by turning off the TV and Facebook and quit, and all that outside interference, and just,
and focus
you're
on
fasting, breaking away from that, those daily distractions, and focusing on God.
Right. And what Paul was saying to them is you can find yourself fasting, but for the wrong reasons. So your fasting gets you further away from Jesus than what your intended purposes are. So that's why he was telling them, you got this freedom now. What you gonna do with it? What we gonna do with it? Now, an important one, and I want everyone to remember to think about this. And I want you to, if you can, write this down. Isaiah chapter 58. This is Isaiah chapter 58, and you'll see what he's saying here. And I'm going to read this, and this is Isaiah chapter 58. And this is God's purpose for fasting. And I'm going to read the NIV version. And it talks about true fasting. It says, shout it aloud, do not hold back. Raise your voice like a trumpet. Declare to my people their rebellion, and to the descendants of Jacob their sins. For day after day they seek me out. They seem eager to know my ways, as if they were a nation that does what is right and has not forsaken the commands of its God. They ask me for just decisions and seem eager for God to come near them. Why have we fasted, they say, and you have not seen it? Why have we humbled ourselves and you have not noticed? Yet on the day of your fasting, you do as you please and exploit all your workers. Your fasting ends in quarreling and strife, and in striking each other with wicked fists. You cannot fast as you do today and expect your voice to be heard on high. Now I want to stop right there, and you see what Isaiah is telling them. You fasting. Why? You coming to God and saying, okay, we fasted, but nothing happening. We fasted, we're doing what you said, but nothing's happening. And he's telling them that on the day of your fast, look at what you're doing. So when you're fasting, you're doing the same, you said your fasting ends in quarreling and strife, and you're fighting and all of the things, because we're asking God, why have we humbled ourselves before you in the fast and we don't see anything? Why have we fasted and we haven't seen anything? There's no results. Well, he told them. He says on the day of your fasting, you do as you please and exploit your workers. Your fasting ends in quarreling and strife. And he's striking each other with wicked fists. So you cannot fast as you do today and expect your voice to be heard on high. So he's telling them that the fast you're doing, tell them they fasting, but look at what they're doing. And they want to know why there's no answer to the fast. It's because they're doing it wrong. Then verse 5 says, is this the kind of fast I have chosen? Only a day for people to humble themselves? Is it only for bowing one's head like a reed and for lying in sackcloth and ashes? Now we notice that in the Bible, we notice that Job rent his clothes and covered himself in ashes. And throughout the Bible, they rent their clothes, which means they tore their clothes off, and covered themselves in ashes. So is that what you call a fast? A day acceptable to the Lord? Is that what you call a fast? Something you're doing personally, something you're doing, and there are no results. Well, whatever you're looking for, you're doing it wrong. You got the wrong mentality. And even today, the fast, if you do fast, you don't get no results. It's done. You need to reevaluate your fast. Here God telling them. So Isaiah, I want you to tell them. You think that's the fast that I asked? Is that the kind of fast? Do you think it's acceptable? Bowing your head for a day, cover yourself in ashes, sitting, on the sackcloth, and you think that's the kind of fast? You think that's a fast? Is that what you call a fast? A day acceptable to the Lord? He's telling them what they're doing wrong. That they're still fighting amongst themselves and you know, it's just wrong. But they think that is a fast. It is acceptable. God asked the question, is that acceptable? In verse 6, is not this the kind of fasting I have chosen? Now here is where he says, is not this the kind of fast I have chosen? To loose the chains of injustice and untie the cords of the yoke, to set the oppressed free and break every yoke. Is it not to share your food with the hungry and to provide the poor wanderer with shelter? When you see the naked, to clothe them and not to turn away from your own flesh and blood? Then your light will break forth like the dawn, and your healing will quickly appear. Then your righteousness will go before you, and the glory of the Lord will be your rear guard. Then you will call, and the Lord will answer. You will cry for help, and he will say, here I am. If you do away with the yoke of oppression, with the pointing finger and malicious talk, and if you spend yourselves in behalf of the hungry and satisfy the needs of the oppressed, then your light will rise in the darkness, and your night will become like the noonday. The Lord will guide you always. He will satisfy your needs in a sun-scorched land and will strengthen your frame. You will be like a well-watered garden, like a spring whose waters never fail. Your people will rebuild the ancient ruins and will rise up the age-old foundations. You will be called repairer of broken walls, restorer of streets with dwellings. If you keep your feet from breaking the Sabbath and from doing as you please on my holy day, if you call the Sabbath a delight and the Lord's holy day honorable, and if you honor it by not going your own way and not doing as you please or speaking out of words, then you will find your joy in the Lord. And I will cause you to ride in triumph on the heights of the land and to feast in the inheritance of your father Jacob. The mouth of the Lord has spoken. Now here's Isaiah telling them that what you're doing, how you're doing it, the reasoning behind you doing it, the results of you doing it. Is that acceptable? Is that acceptable? Well, when you take a look, you will see what he's saying. The kind of fast, the reasons why we should be fasting. It is not to cover ourselves in ashes and sackcloth and, you know, and I guess go chanting Kumbaya and all of that. No. No. There's got to be a reason behind it. And the first thing he says is, not this the kind of fast I have chosen. When you're talking about fasting, you need to be fast to loose the chains of injustice, to untie the cords of the yoke, to set the oppressed free, sharing your food with the hungry, providing shelter, clothing the naked. Then, he said, your light will come through like the dawn, and then your healing will appear. So you see, he's telling that when you do these things, when you fast like this, when you fast in this nature, then you will be answered. And the King James Version says in verse 6, is not this the fast I have chosen, to loose the bands of wickedness, to undo heavy burdens, to let the oppressed go free, and that ye break every yoke? Is it not to deal thy bread to the hungry, and that thou bring the poor that are cast out to thy house? When thou seest the naked, that thou cover him, and that thou hide not themselves from their own flesh? Then shall thy light break forth as the morning, and thine health shall spring forth speedily, and thy righteousness shall go before thee. The glory of the Lord shall be thy reward. So he's telling them you fasting, but look at what happens. You're still fighting. You're still doing all of those things. And then you expect to get an answer? So he's saying that you got the wrong idea behind fasting. The wrong idea. And some of that wickedness, to loose the bands of wickedness, that's what you're doing. The heavy burdens in your life, that's what you're doing. And all of the things he's going through is saying that this is what the fasting. So in Isaiah 1 through 8, that's the purpose. The purpose of all worship, including fasting, is to change the worshiper in ways that have social and interpersonal impact. And all of this in verse 6 to 8 is social and interpersonal. And he's saying, is this not the fast that I've chosen? If you're going to fast, fast like this. Fast with this mentality. Instead of just, as he's saying, just, sitting in sackcloth and covering yourself in ashes and all of that, Because he said, that look at what you do. You fasting for strife and debate. You fasting for the wrong reasons. And then you want to know why there's no breakthrough in your personal life. And you think that fast is going to get my answer? So you ought to know, because they asked the question, will we fasting and nothing happening? Why? God, we fasted but nothing happening. So he told Isaiah to tell him this is what the fast, this is the foundation of the fast.
Kind of like Paul in the New Testament explaining why when people didn't follow the communion the correct way and were abusing it,
right.
Why they were sick.
Right, and why they were sick and dying in the church.
Yeah.
Because they're saying, well, we doing the Corinth, the Church of Corinth, we doing the communion. Well, why are we still getting sick? Why are we dying? Paul said, because you're blaspheming the thing. You're blaspheming it. Just because you're going through the motions, and when you read Corinthians, in 1 Corinthians, you see that the rich people were coming to the church first and drinking up all the wine. That's why Paul said, you ain't got no wine at home to get drunk off of. You got to come to church to do it. Eating up all of the bread and stuff, and then the poor people didn't have anything to do communion. That's what he was saying, and there's people getting sick. They were dying in the church. And here, God's telling them that you all, okay, you tearing your clothes off, you're putting ashes on your body, and you calling out a fast? And then after the fast, you still fighting. You still not not associating with people. You still not. You're still doing all of the things against the foundation of the fast. So he had to give them the instructions. Give them the foundation for the fast. And you will see the foundation for the fast in Isaiah chapter 58. Really 6 through 8, but you really need to start at verse 1 to get the foundation as to why things weren't happening. Because he said you call out, you say you ask the question. We fasting, ain't nothing, and we ain't got no results. We call on you and we ain't got no results. And he told them why. So is not this the fast that I have chosen? The first thing he said is to loose the bands of wickedness, to change our ways to ourselves and to our fellow man, to undo our heavy burdens. You know we can't do it by ourselves. Let the oppressed go free. Break every yoke. He says, is that not what I asked you to fast for? Isn't that why you should be fasting? Isn't that why you should be fasting? How are you going to feed the hungry? Going to bring the poor to the cast out? How are you going to clothe the naked? And how are you going to socialize with other people? So now when you do that, then you'll see the benefit. Then your fasting for health will be readily, speedily. And then your righteousness will go before you. And the only reward that you're going to get for fasting is the glory of the Lord. If you're doing it for man, I'm telling you now, you're wasting your time. Yes.
That's what I was going to say. A lot of that tearing of the clothes and the ashes, that was for me.
Yes.
That was to show that this is what I'm doing. I'm fasting. See everybody.
Yeah.
In their heart of it.
Right. That they tear their clothes and
Right.
cover themselves in ashes so everybody could see that they're fasting.
Putting on a show.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Look at me, look at me.
yeah, and then here
Right.
Yeah.
Isaiah is telling them, the God said, you think that's the fast? You think that that's acceptable to me? You got it. You got the wrong mindset. So that's why I say these fasts, these different biblical fasts, there's a mindset behind them. And your only reward, I'm telling you now, of the biblical fast, that we're going to cover in the next few weeks, the only reward you're going to get is the glory of the Lord. It's the only reward you're going to get. That's why you should be fasting. Because then your light will come through. Then your righteousness will fall before you, if that's what you're trying to do. But if you're going to do it, we're going to do it for the right reason. Now, I put here in Joel chapter 2. Now, in Joel chapter 2, this is one of the minor prophets. Now, look, let me tell you something right now. The difference between a minor prophet and the major prophets in the Bible is the length of the book. That's all. Each one of them had their own time and their own foundation, if you want to say, so to speak. But the minor prophet and the major prophet, they were all prophets. The only difference is the length of the book.
Something I had more to say.
Right. So Joel is a minor prophet. Now, Joel chapter 2, verse 20 says, therefore also now, saith the Lord, turn ye even to me with all your heart, and with fasting, and with weeping, and with mourning. And then, if you look at 13, he says, and rend your heart, and not your garments. And turn unto the Lord your God, for he is gracious and merciful, slow to anger, of great kindness, and repenteth him of the evil. Now here during his time, and his prophet saying, wait a minute. We're going to fast. But there's a fasting with weeping and mourning. There's a fasting that something needs to happen. You need to rend your heart, which means you need to tear your heart open instead of your clothes, and turn to the Lord your God. So you see with the fasting, the personal thing here in Joel is saying that you need to rend your heart and not your clothes. I mean, I ain't got nothing wrong with you tearing your clothes, sitting in sackcloth. You can do all of that. But what about your heart? What about your heart? And that's what Joel is saying. That when you're repenting, you're fasting. Now, I put the 4 kinds of fasting. The 4 kinds of fasting. But the fasting, and regardless of the type of fasting that you're doing, there's 9